Toggling of the Skype audio. Oh my gosh.
That was the biggest ocean.
Oh my goodness. All right, so I have a little video playing, just looping, showing some slides about IP workflows and IP video.
Do you want to do the giveaway first, or do you want to do the Q&A first?
Let's just leave the giveaway and just say that whoever wins the giveaway will just send the free PTZOptics sunglasses in the Chat Connect Pro. Whoever wins that,
that works for me.
We'll
or we can do it
live.
at the very last, maybe, just if they want to see for proof of and all that. So Roberto says, with NDI 3.0, how many HD signals can fit in a 1 gigabyte switcher?
Okay, so NDI 3.0. So can you read this question again? I want to make sure I'm answering it exactly correctly.
Yeah. With NDI 3.0, how many HD signals can fit in a 1 gigabyte switcher?
Okay, so I'm assuming he's saying, okay, I've got a network. It's a gigabit network. How many sources can I have running? I've got a computer. How many sources can I receive at once?
Yeah, I think that's what.
On a single. So we're using full NDI, so the not using NDI HX, it's going to be about the same as it was in the previous version. So NDI 2 and NDI 3, they both maintain about the same bandwidth. Our target is somewhere in the range of about 100 megabits per stream. So let's just be practical. You can get about 7 or 8 streams on a single gigabit connection. Now, something that maybe isn't that widely known is that NDI, just out of the box, as long as you're using the current version of the SDK, not even 3.0, even using, say, 2.0, we supported having multiple NICs in a computer, and we would spread the connection across 2 NICs. So, and most computers have more than 1 NIC, so you could easily double that by having 2 NICs, just hook up 2 network cables, and you're going to get twice as many streams. If you're using, so on 3.0, which was his question, we have kept the bit rate the same. However, because we believe that that's about right. That's what you need to get great looking video that's as good as SDI. Mm-hmm. But what we have done is we have increased the compression quality at the same bit rate. So the video will end up looking quite a bit better in NDI version 3 than NDI 2. And that is particularly noticeable as you move beyond 1080p. So at 4K, the difference is night and day. At 1080p, it's probably there if you look closely.
Great, thank you. I want to touch on some Facebook ones too. Let's see what we have here. Michael Seth Burgess says, will there be NDI for Linux? Did we touch on that?
NDI is already supported on Linux. Okay. The SDK can be downloaded for Linux. It already works. Our support for Intel-based Linux is a lot better than our support for ARM-based Linux, but we already support Linux.
And while you're on Facebook, we never got to ask our Facebook reaction question, which I really wanted to get to, which is, do you have a 10100 gigabit or 5 gigabit or greater network switch deployed for in your office? So if you're watching on Facebook, if you hit the heart button, the haha button, or the wow button.
So it goes in order. Heart would be 10 over 100, haha would be 1 gigabyte, and 5 or more would be the wow.
The wow.
So make sure that you go ahead and answer that if you're watching on Facebook. If you want to get to the link really quick, I did put it in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. So back to these questions. So we got a TriCaster question. When will TriCaster units get the NDI HX update?
So NDI HX. Mm-hmm. So I'll give a little secret here. NDI HX, in NDI 2.1, which was released actually the SDK for 2.1 was released in February or end of January. We actually already built in all the hooks we needed so that NDI HX would work when we were complete with it. So many applications will support NDI HX today without any change.
You don't even know it, and it's there.
So you don't need to update as long as your software has been updated this year. Right? Okay. So yes, if your software's had a patch this year, you're running on the latest version of the SDK that's available today, or any SDK since about the beginning of January. HX will work with your device, even if your device isn't NDI 3.
Alrighty.
Cool.
Christopher is asking about Wi-Fi range on the NewTek Connect Spark. My router is 300 plus feet away. Can I access Wi-Fi NDI HX signal from there, or does it not? Or does it depend on router strength? 300 feet away with a NewTek Connect Spark.
I mean, it's going to boil down to what the range on your router is. I would not claim to be fully qualified to give you the absolute best answer on routers and Wi-Fi strength. But if your computer can talk to it, we can talk to it. So there are ways to extend wireless distance really very easily, including they're not legal everywhere, but you can use directional antennas. Then you'll be able to do miles if you want. But go online, look up how to extend the range of my wireless, and you can make wireless run as far as you want these days.
Interesting.
All right.
In fact, while we're on that subject of Wi-Fi, this was actually from Nick Smith of JB&A. He asked if he was wondering about Spark units, and how many could be put on a Wi-Fi router. Obviously, that depends on the router that you have. But does it send a proxy until it's pulled to air, or is it just broadcasting the same amount of bandwidth all the time?
Oh, that is a very complicated question to answer when you're talking about how it determines what bandwidth to use when. I think that it is probably safe to say that 10 megabits is a good ballpark, but I'm saying 10 megabits to me is what is needed for full 1080p at full frame rate. So if you want to run low resolutions, you can get away with quite a lot less than that. Now, modern wireless routers can go. Think how many streams of 10 megabits can they handle? I mean, they can handle a lot. So you should be able to get quite a few streams. I would imagine that it can solve most people's needs in most cases. It would seem to me that on a modern Wi-Fi router, getting four plus cameras is pretty easy, no matter what, in all situations.
It's just so incredible with a gigabit switch. I feel like 100 megabits was a little tough because you're probably using it. And people say that you should have 50-60% headroom. You should never really be using the full gigabit switch. So getting to 10 megabits, now we can really throw 5-10 sources on there and still not have to worry, about overloading our network. Because I think a lot of people want to use existing networks. I really think they should put in dedicated networks, but I think you're reaching out, especially when you talk about XSplit and OBS users and vMix and Wirecast and Livestream users. A lot of these people are on very low budgets, and they're trying to put things together as easy as they possibly can, and they're just testing. Can I do this? Is it going to work? Can I plug it in? And I think with 200 or 300 megabit streams, it could possibly be more than they could handle. Or even on a small business level, is the IT guy going to say, yeah, sure, you can put 400 megabits on my gigabit router? Probably not. But can I do 40 or 50? I think that's possible. So this NDI HX thing is really like the holy grail, as like you said, of making this possible.
It is funny because we came out with NDI, version 1. It does about 100 megabits, and it was funny because we had people on the high end saying to us, "Gosh, I want uncompressed. I want 3 gigabits," and you had people on the low end going, "Gosh, I want 10 megabits." And so it's funny that even though we were square in the middle of what exactly would work for gigabit networks, there's always people who want more and always people who want less. But I think that HX, by having that as available in NDI, it gives us more tools to be able to satisfy a much broader part of the IP video needs, which is what we're trying to enable.
Well, it's really, really incredible. So I just want to make sure I ask all these questions. Is HDR support possibly coming in the future? Are there any plans for that?
I'll just say yes.
Okay.
My normal answer would be, we're thinking about it. We don't pre-announce things, but HDR is something that NDI absolutely should do. Now, I should give a slight explanation on this. It is my view that HDR has kind of been, there are going to be people who probably slightly disagree with this term, but has been slightly cobbled into SDI in that they've made HDR so it works on existing SDI infrastructure, which is great. It means that HDR is easily available on SDI today. But with NDI, we don't have the same kind of constraints that it needs to work on a cable that's 40 years old. And so computers can technically do HDR much better than traditional devices could. So for instance, when you look at like products like ours, like Lightwave, we've had floating point imagery forever. And my view is that when we go to HDR and when we bring HDR into NDI, that we need to do something more than just put basically a log gamma curve on the video signal, because I think we can enable something that's actually far more useful than that. And so, our intent is absolutely to go HDR and to go there really properly and not kind of make a half kind of kludged, hey, we're just playing gamma curve to it solution.
Cool. Well, that's good to hear. That was one of the questions that came out. And another one, actually, this is from, I forget his name, but he wanted to know if there will ever be adaptability or variable data rates that you could choose from, or is it really kind of just device specific? If it's a NDI HX camera, it's X, and if it's an NDI signal coming from a TriCaster, it's X. Is there ever going to be a variable bitrate or data rate option?
Yeah, so NDI HX devices so for instance, the Spark Connect, it hosts a web page, so you can get to it from a mobile device, and it basically allows you to say, do you want high, medium, or low bandwidth? And high, which is all we've talked about, is 10 megabits. But you can say, I want to be receiving a lower bandwidth stream for this, and we allow you to use lower bandwidths. And this is important because it means that you can use these in remote production as well, so that you can take the signal across the public internet. And so obviously the quality doesn't look as good, but it's a trade-off, isn't it? So for people who have constrained bandwidth, you can say I'm going to run low bandwidth, which basically brings it down to about maybe 3 to 5 megabits. And so we actually, with HX, we do have some degree of variability already built in. But we're not looking, our goal is to be an API, I should say a standard that works. We want you to look at that video signal and it looks great, and not need to think, okay, look, I've manually tweaked this value here and this value there, because that's not solving it for people. We want it to just work. So we do, when we talk about it, we talk about the 10 megabit, which is the maximum, although, on something like Spark Connect, you can actually tell it to go lower.
Very interesting. Yeah, because I think that's something that people were asking about. I do have some of the harder questions here. A lot of people were waiting for the bird dog. They were, I don't know if we could address the difference between, is there any difference between the bird dog and the Spark as far as, I'm not sure if the bird dog's even shipping, so maybe you can't even speak to this question, but it was a question that had been continually coming up. People were waiting for this bird dog unit that really never came. It may be coming to market. Maybe it's not. Can you say anything about, is there a difference in the way that Spark was implemented that made it easier for you to get it to market?
So first of all, Bird Dog, I'm great friends with those guys. I speak to them, all the time, and it's certainly going to come to market, and it's real. I've seen it working. So I don't want anybody speculating that it's somehow vaporware. It's absolutely not. And I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely awesome product. I think they've done a great job. They've taken on a hard job because we worked with them, right? They were probably, when we released NDI 1, they started working on this, and they have taken on developing all of this themselves. And my hat is off to them for doing that. They've done an amazing job, and I'm sure it's going to be a great product. Spark Connect and Bird Dog are different devices, and they have different strengths. And I would encourage you to look at the differences between them. I think we have HX support, which runs at lower bandwidth, but at the same time, Bird Dog might run slightly low latency. So that's a trade-off. We support wireless. They're different products. I see them solving different needs, and we are happy to work with everybody, and we try to work with everybody, and Bird Dog included, and they're going to make a great product.
Yes, we do have a lot of questions building up in the chat here if we can get through some of these. Will the NDI Cam app be updated with NDI 3.0?
Yes, probably. Everything requires work, and I've only
right. I know this is probably like bombarding like you things. A little bit.
No. Give me more hours in the day, and the answer is guaranteed. Guaranteed.
He's doing the best
absolutely.
he can.
And I look at that app and I go, gosh, if I'd had NDI HX when we've made that app, it would have been so much better. It's absolutely our goal. Okay. And right now I'm working on getting everything shipping, getting the multicast. I mean, we're trying to get this out too. We've got to, you have to think that right now we're coming out, NewTek in effect coming out with 10 products because we're working with companies from PTZOptics to Panasonic, our own products. We've got the SDK. We want to get every piece of this done. We believe in this more than anybody, and unfortunately, I have to sleep a few hours every night.
Darn you.
So I hope I've given you the best answer. It's absolutely our intent to. We absolutely want to, and I want it as much as everybody else. But the real world somehow gets in the way sometimes.
Well, that's totally understandable. This one keeps coming up. How do you control unauthorized people from taking control over a PTZ camera during a live stream and broadcast?
Okay, so the first answer to that is don't set up your network so that can happen. Okay. At the end of the day, security is about network access. If some, every IT person will know that the true security to your network is stopping somebody walking in the door and plugging into your network. Because the moment you have access to that network, you have access to any devices on it, and any holes in that network are there to access. And so we would strongly encourage people to make sure that they keep their network segmented to where they want people to control and where they don't. And there are wonderful tools for doing that. This is a problem that companies far bigger than us have solved and made great tools available for, and we would encourage you to go that way. You can put passwords on these things. There's Group Manager in NDI. All of these things work, but at the end of the day, we're not a security company. Right. And there are companies that do this far, far better than any one of us will, and will offer things that serve your needs better than we will, quite honestly. And so we want you to work with the best technologies available, and when it comes to security, there's great stuff out there.
When it comes to the Sparks, is there a maximum number that someone can use?
No. We have a whole load of them on our network right now.
Okay.
I'm sure that there is. And put it this way, when we started working on NDI, we designed all our UIs around this idea that, we were used to making 8 input switches. And so, hey, 8, 10, maybe 16 inputs would be available on the network. So we started work on this. Then what happened is, we had all our developers starting to put all their sources on the network, and suddenly, before we knew it, we had hundreds available on our network. And so we had to actually go back and redesign all our own user interfaces to support hundreds of devices, because, and so I'm sure that there's some practical limit, but it's going to be high.
Right. Jan says, does NDI do talkback and monitoring? Some of these I'm not sure what I'm even talking about. So if I sound silly, it's because I'm not sure.
No, it's a great question. It's a great question. So first of all, NDI itself is a protocol that connects a sender to a receiver. Okay. And that can be from a camera to a switching system, or it could be, from the switching system back to the camera. And NDI in itself, technically, so yes, it can be used for talkback today if people take advantage of doing that. I guess the maybe slightly more practical question is, are NewTek going to standardize the controls around how it could be used for talkback? Because so NDI itself would technically support talkback. So the question is, the practical question is, do we want to standardize that? And we might well, and a lot of these things come down to the level of interest we hear from the market, because we fight hard, and anybody who asks us for changes to NDI, we fight hard for usability in the API and usability to developers, because at the end of the day, this is going to get adopted if it's easy to use. And so we will add Talkback if beyond the fact that it could do it indirectly today, if that is something that's heavily looked for. It's not hard to add, especially for audio, because audio takes no bandwidth.
Right.
Well, I've actually pretty much asked all the questions. We went out on Facebook to the the TriCaster user groups and all the different places and said, "What do you want to hear?" And you ended up really answering everything here. One of the ones we didn't specifically ask you was real expected latency for NDI HX, and I think we threw around a 30 millisecond number, roughly.
It's probably closer to 50, but it's about, here's the thing, it's about a frame worse than regular NDI. So that's the trade-off. You get much better compression for about a frame, so about 30 milliseconds worse latency. There are some small number of applications where that really matters, but the vast majority, it's not what people are used to. And I know you've used this. You can speak to it. It does need to be seen to be believed, because a lot of people are used to IP, where you kind of wave your hand, then you look over at the monitor and you see, okay, I'm going to wave my hand now, and it's nothing good. It's not like that at all. It is really very low latency. For all practical cases, there's no latency as far as I'm concerned.
I couldn't believe it, and I can't wait to get it out to our customers. We didn't mention the fact that one of the amazing things with anyone with a Gen 2 PTZOptics camera, it's a simple firmware update. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be able to try it yourself and see what it's like, which I'm really excited about that. There was one actually question I have here. Is the 3.0 SDK, which I guess is going to be released soon, is that preferred over the version 2 SDK? And are there any differences? Is it backwards compatible for the developers out there?
It is 100% backwards compatible. I personally have worked really, really, really hard on this. In fact, I can download an application that was written with a version 1 SDK, and I can change out the DLL. No recompiling. I can just change the DLL on the drive. It'll run with the version 3 SDK. That's how hard we've tried to make it backwards compatible. It is preferred. It works better, and we work with more users every day that goes by. So we hear of this bug, that bug, this thing we can improve, and we do it all. So version 3, it's got lots of improvements. It's got performance improvements. It supports multicast, but it's completely backwards compatible. And it's also forwards compatible. And what I mean by that is we have designed any version of NDI so that a version 1 can send to a version 3 sender. So version 1 is forwards compatible with version 3 in the same way that version 3 is backwards compatible with version 1. So, we don't want there to ever be interoperability problems between any two NDI devices that have ever been sold anywhere. And that's our, so we consider it a bug. If something didn't work there, it's a bug, and we'd fix it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see the use cases outside the live stream. We've gone over an hour, so I know you probably have to go. One of the things, just my personal question for you, is if I can maybe end on this, or if there's something burning in the chat room, Tess, throw it in here. But my personal question is, I'm interested to see how this seems perfect for the live streaming and broadcast industry. And I have to imagine that was your first goal. But I wonder and think of the adoptions in video conferencing, or anything even personal. I'm not sure where this could go, but one of the things that I've seen you do, and what makes me confident in NDI, because there are other protocols and there are other ways to transfer IP video, but you really, I feel like you're trying to make it easy. And for the salespeople who have to train, for the people that have to go out and evangelize this idea, for the people, for your partners, that is what that's what I care about the most. Is it freaking easy? And is it going to work every time? And from what you've told me, that seems to be one of your goals. We want it to work on every switch. We want this to be easy. And that, to me, is the most important thing. Like all the other stuff that we've talked about, like everyone's excited about it. They all want to know the answers to it. But if it's going to be easy, that's what's going to make it scalable. And I know this is not even hardly a question, but live streaming, broadcast, perfect. It hits the nail on the head. It's probably going to be the next standard. I really do believe that from everything I've seen. And been in the industry and going to NAB. But are there any other markets that you think, like, are people in video conferencing? Is it possible? Unified communications, other applications, distance learning.
Someone in the chat was
lecture
talking
capture.
about using it in education.
Like, can you give us a little picture of that? Because I feel like live streaming and broadcast is very clear, but the other is a little hazy about
when we
other
first
places.
came out. When we first came out with NDI, I expected it to be adopted by our competitors, and that was good. That was what we wanted. We never believed that the interconnect, nobody should make the interconnect part of proprietary anything. So we were fine with that. We were good with that. And I thought that's all that would happen. And I would gauge success by if that happened, and it happened relatively quickly. But what blew my mind, and I did not expect, and I would love to say that, man, I had this great foresight, and we knew this was going to happen, was that it got adopted in all sorts of other areas that I have never thought about. And that is maybe the coolest part of all this. I've been sent people doing huge on-stage shows where they have massive 4K LED boards that cover the whole back of the stage, and they have got NDI integrated so that things from the dancers on the stage are integrated back in with the lighting effects. And I mean, who would ever think of doing that? I've seen things where people are projecting onto the side of buildings using NDI. I've seen nightclubs where people are using it to do projection. And I mean, in the audio world, I never thought of those markets and people using it. Game streaming computer games is huge. XSplit came along and said to us, well, we integrated NDI, and I said, well, XSplit, I don't know that I'd heard of them before. And so I got talking to them, and I'm not a big gamer, by the way. So I got talking to them, and I started talking to them, and they're like, yeah, we got millions of users. I was like, what? Say that again? And they said, no, we're up nearly 10 million users. 10 million users. OBS has NDI. I mean, these are markets that are just staggeringly huge, that are changing. I mean, think about this. Live streaming's big. We're doing a live show now. That was unheard of. But Twitch, multi-billion-dollar company. Google have just got into online game streaming. Microsoft just got into online game streaming. You've got 3 billion-plus companies that just got into game streaming in the last 2 years. That is how quick that market is growing. Then education, I mean, that's moving IP everywhere. I mean, the growth of these markets is unbelievable. Corporate, corporate is going to be huge with video. Every company has a marketing budget, and the world is moving away from printed physical things that you hold into moving things. That is what the young generation, the viewers out there are watching. And so they're going to be producing more video. So you need easy ways to do this, and you can't be doing it on 10 gigabit networks. You need to be doing, every office building is wired for gigabit. That's why we target gigabit. So I think there is just massive growth around this. I think there's going to be more video produced in the next year than last year, and more the year after that, and it's going to grow quickly. And I mean, it's an exciting time to see this stuff happening and coming together. And I just hope that we're a tiny little part of that. I do believe, I've got to say, I think that 10 years from now, I think everybody acknowledges video will be done over IP. Everybody acknowledges that. I mean, it would be crazy. How can you argue the opposite? I mean, it's the cameras are digital devices. We've got networks. Why are these two things not already talking to each other? So what I hope is that we're all going to look back at kind of when NDI HX and NDI came together as one of the things that actually put kind of a spark to the gunpowder and actually made that revolution become real. Because right now we've got NDI, which on the desktop and on the application side of things is huge. And then you've got all these IP cameras out there that are on their own huge. And really NDI HX and NDI 3 are bringing those two things together, which is probably what was needed to make the IP revolution, the true video IP revolution, take off. So I hope that this is at least one of the kind of announcements, one of the things that help make that happen. And if I did that, my life is, I've achieved one of my bucket list.
Well, I think that NDI HX is a serious, probably the biggest thing I've heard of in the NDI world. I think that's the biggest announcement. I'm so happy that you've brought that to market, because that's where things I think you're going to start to see get real. If that's the best
agree.
way to put it, that's when things are really going to get real. That's when you can say, "Can I get 10 megabits on the gigabit network, Mr. IT person?" They can't say no to you for that. Now 100,
Yep.
Maybe they could be a little upset. But thank you so much for coming on the show. There was so
My
much
pleasure.
that got answered here,
Great
and I think
content.
everyone was really excited. Sorry for the rocky start. Thank you for sticking with us.
It made the show much more memorable, and you should
That's for sure.
you should think about that, because this will be a show now that you will remember better as a result of that. So I consider those are good experiences to go through in life sometimes.
That's certainly true. And for those of you who didn't get your questions answered, go ahead and bring them to the user group and post them in the Facebook user group that we have, facebook.com/groups/PTZOptics pals. It should also be in the description, and we'll try to cover them throughout the next week.
Or at a later date.
Thank you guys so
Thank you.
much.
Have a good weekend, Andrew.
Thank you for the show.
Take care. Thanks so
And
much.
that's all, folks. We appreciate your participation in the chat room and can't wait to host our next informative Q&A session. Your questions drive the conversation forward for live streaming professionals around the world. Until next time, happy streaming!
If people are still watching, you could do your social media update real quick.
If you want.
Are they watching still?
I don't know.
Let's just cut it.
It's been such a...
It's been
I don't want to try it.
There was a ton of questions in the chat.
So many.
There's 46 people watching on YouTube right now.
That's good for what happened.